Nic Deslauriers is a maniac. Plus, Cam Talbot might have a little something to say about the goalie splits the rest of the season. We recap the Wild's 3-0 win over the Vegas Golden Knights, the trade deadline, and look ahead to the rest of the week today on Locked on Wild.
You're Locked on Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked on Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen every day. And just as a reminder, Locked on Wild is free and available wherever you listen to podcasts. On today's episode of Locked on Wild, we recap a 3-0 win for the new-look Minnesota Wild against the Vegas Golden Knights with Alex Micheletti. We talk about the trades at the trade deadline, and we look ahead to yet another busy week, including a Sunday showdown against the Colorado Avalanche. So a lot to discuss here today. And happy to have you along for yet another episode of Locked on Wild. Should mention that today's episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and make sure to tell them Locked On sent you. Thank you as well to everybody who tuned in to all the various content that we had going on throughout the day. Had all those trades on lock. And the Wild culminated a crazy trade deadline with an electrifying win over the Vegas Golden Knights. Here to help us break it down is Alex Micheletti. Alex, by the time people listen to this, it'll officially be your birthday. So first and foremost, Locked on Wild audience, let's wish him a happy birthday. How's it going, man?
Good. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. And thanks for listening. It's always fun to hear comments from everybody when they listen. So I really appreciate it. I know Seth and I love doing this. So I love joining when I can. So yeah. It was a fascinating day, fascinating night before too, with some trades that were trickling in, and what a great day for the Wild. And this Fleury rumor had been circulating for quite a bit, and then he starts last night for Chicago, and we're like, what? You're trying to protect your assets, but then you still start them, and so just crazy. And I think a wonderful day by Billy G. And he showed the team, the team that the guys that were on the team already, that he wants to make a run for it. So it was a great day.
Ended up getting Marc-Andre Fleury, got Nic Deslauriers before trade deadline day, also got Jacob Middleton on trade deadline day for a little bit of a surprise move in trading away Kaapo Kähkönen, but also then before the deadline acquiring Tyson Jost. So Jost, Delaurier, Middleton, Fleury, you subtract Victor Rask for Seattle paying part of his salary for him to just go to the AHL elsewhere, and Kaapo Kähkönen leaves as well. Of the moves of the players that came in, and we'll extend it all the way back to Tyson Jost being added to the roster. Of the guys that have come in to be part of this team, which one do you think is going to pan out the best?
Yeah, man, that's really, really, really tough. I think getting Fleury for the playoffs is just gigantic. I mean, the guy's won 3 cups. He can steal you a playoff game. We saw it last year with him with Vegas against the Wild. That game where he just robbed Ryan Hartman like 8 or 9 times with his glove. I think he could end up being the biggest difference. I think getting a guy like Jacob Middleton was huge too, because it can help cut down on minutes for guys like Alex Goligoski, who at some points in the season has shown that he's kind of worn out. And so I think pairing Middleton with Spurgeon, and then then Dumbo with Brodin gives you really solid top four, and then with that bottom pairing, you can mix those three of Goligoski, Kulikov, and Merrill together. Merrill looked great tonight. So did Kulikov, and so you can just kind of rotate those guys as need be. And so I think having a solid top four is just going to be gigantic. And Middleton was pretty good for a say Sharks team that's just going down. He had to be the guy that kind of was more of the saving the day defensive defenseman when you're playing with a guy like Erik Karlsson who likes to join the rush and kind of be all over the ice. And so he's a guy that can also fight if need be. He's had some just gigantic fights this year too. So if he needs to help protect anybody out there in 97, Kirill or any of the smaller guys, he's there to help out. And so and also really good on the penalty kill, which has been struggling, but it was 2 for 2 tonight. So step in the right direction for sure against even though Vegas is a depleted team, they still have a really good power play guys out there, and Karlsson and Stevenson and Eichel and Pietrangelo, the list goes on, Marchessault. So I mean, they still have some guys that are dangerous when you're 5-on-4. So job well done. And looking forward to seeing all the acquisitions probably all out there together on Thursday. It was way too soon for Middleton, and you're not going to have Fleury start right off the private jet. Thanks Craig.
Well, and the funny thing is that Cam Talbot was like, wait a minute. We're not going to go to Fleury starting all the games just yet, as we'll talk about in kind of recapping the game. You brought up a good point about Vegas, despite them being extremely shorthanded. They are very well coached. Pete DeBoer is a fantastic coach in the NHL, and so even though a team is missing a bunch of its key pieces, good coaches can get them to be ready to play night in and night out. So it's still a tough fight from that team because of the style of hockey that they play. But Nic Deslauriers is a maniac.
Unbelievable. I've been telling people he's not really going to be a point producer, and then he gets the goal right away. You look at that fourth line too, and you're like, Tyson Jost, he's very quiet and just goes about his business. And he's got two maniacs on his line in Brandon Duhaime and Nic Deslauriers, who both of them will drop the gloves at in a heartbeat. They love to throw their bodies around, and so it's an interesting fourth line. And they get the goal right away, and they put pressure on right away. And Nic Deslauriers, what a shot in the slot, for off the pass from off the feed from Duhaime from behind the net, and they set the tone early, and Dean wasn't afraid to get them out there against the Eichel line, and so it was something else, and he had 6 hits too, and so almost had a second goal too on Thompson, and so what a debut for Nick. I think he's going to be a fan favorite. He's obviously not going to score every game, but just put the pressure on the forecheck every time he's out there, and just wreak havoc. It's awesome. He's a character for sure.
Pulling Wild Bill Karlsson, like dragging him out of the crease,
out of Hakkasan,
just like that GIF. I think I quote tweeted it when that happened, and I'm like, this is just my life now. Like watching this over and over.
Yeah, I gave up. Remember a few years ago when Dustin Byfuglien had 2 of the Vegas guys, and he was pulling them up. That had that kind of same type of vibe. It's kind of William Karlsson's. He's been in the league for quite a bit, and so that was just funny that Delaurier did that, and everybody kind of just was like didn't know what to do. It's fun. He's there protecting his goalie. I'm sure Cam appreciated it, and also I'm sure he got a good a good laugh and kick out of it. And sure, the boys were laughing about it in the locker room after the game too.
Yeah, everybody seemed like they were having a great time, and it was a game that was pretty close through 2 periods, but all in all, the Wild got it done. Cam Talbot put the Golden Knights on lock. As Paul Allen said in the broadcast, the Golden Knights went broke when they went to the empty net, and Ryan Hartman cashed it in. And just a great win and a good start to another pivotal week for the Minnesota Wild, which we'll talk about a little later. I did want to kind of dive in a little bit to what the rest of the Central Division did at the deadline. Colorado made a ton of moves. Some other teams didn't do a whole heck of a lot, such as the team that the Wild just leapfrogged in the Central Division standings. So we'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at some of the other trades. The one that is still waiting. There's one trade that still has yet to be officially processed because there are some problems with it. So we'll talk about that as well. More of our trade deadline recap with Alex Micheletti coming up after this here on Locked on Wild. March Madness continues to roll along. If your bracket has anybody left, congratulations, because mine is officially dead. But if you're looking for a good spot to get the lowdown on all the latest odds, contests, and player props, betonline.net is the #1 source for all of your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. So head to their website today or pull out your phone and learn more about the trends and the action. You can find it all at BetOnline, where the game starts. Continuing today's episode of Locked on Wild, again, thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen every day. And once you're done for the day, you can, once you're done listening to Locked on Wild, you can head over to the Locked on NHL podcast to get further recap of everything that happened at the trade deadline. Seth Topal joined by Alex Micheletti. Saw a lot of moves, 31 trades in all, I think, was the count for trade deadline day. But counting the trades that happened before the deadline, there were way more. And we saw a lot of activity from teams in the Central Division. So a lot of teams trying to kind of keep up with Colorado. The Avalanche making a few good moves on deadline day to try to keep themselves at the top of the line. Nashville made a couple of depth trades. The St. Louis Blues are attempting to revive the career of, I believe it's Nick Leddy. They traded for from the Detroit Red Wings. But other than that, they really did not do anything. So in the Central Division, who besides the Wild do you think had the best trade deadline?
I mean, Colorado. Just they get our Terry Lehkonen, great young Finnish player from Montreal who had a heck of a run in the Stanley Cup playoffs last year. And getting Cogliano from San Jose too. He's a good. He'll be a good fourth liner, penalty kill type of guy. They were just kind of looking for bottom six type of players. Getting Nico Sturm too was big for them too. I think. Get a little sandpaper for their bottom six, and so. I thought Colorado did a really good job. Dallas getting the Mesnikov from Detroit, I think was an underrated pickup too. Dallas looks like they're ready to roll. Jake Ottinger is kind of taking over the Nets there, and they got Jason Robertson, who's having just an incredible year, and Joe Pavelski is Joe Pavelski. So I thought those teams did a pretty good job. I thought St. Louis really should have done a lot more. I think they were really interested in a guy like Jacob Chikrin, but when it became that you had to trade like 2 or 3 first round picks, I don't think anybody was willing to do that right now. He's a heck of a player, but that's a way big change in price for sure.
Yeah, that's just an insane haul for a guy that could be a good ad for a team, but it feels way more like a summer deal for anybody that gets
No.
involved because there's going to be a lot that has to go into it. There just was a wide range of prices that were paid for various players throughout the course of the deadline. And then you have whatever the heck is going on with the Vegas Golden Knights, who had a trade agreed to. I believe it was Evgeny Dadonov, who was headed to the Anaheim Ducks.
Yeah.
Signed, sealed, delivered. Hold on a second. Because, and I am not making this up, the Golden Knights bobbled Dadonov's no movement clause, the 10 teams that he could not be traded to. The league didn't have it, didn't have the list. The Golden Knights assumed that they did. The Anaheim Ducks are on Evgeny Dadonov's no trade list. And so this trade legitimately, Elliot Friedman all over it, legitimately is in dispute. And turns out Vegas kind of needs it because they have a ton of cap issues. And so this is a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, they got guys that are on LTIR, and some of them need to come back on, and I can't believe you can fumble it that bad. Where the agent, just like how is this? I think maybe they just rushed it at the last second. It just crazy. Anaheim made another trade, getting Raquel out to Pittsburgh, and so they had a lot going on right at the end there too. And these GMs, they had there was 30 plus trades that were in the registry, past the deadline that all had to, all the trade calls had to get through, which I'm sure that was a blast for the league to try to sort through. But crazy for Dad. I feel bad for Dadonov. I mean, he said that he had done everything, and so I don't know how this all wasn't all solved. It's gonna go into Tuesday. And the deadline was hours ago. Just insane,
unbelievable. The other one that I wanted to talk about trade deadline wise before we look ahead to the week to come for the Wild, which includes a back-to-back Saturday and Sunday. The Tampa Bay Lightning, the defending back-to-back champions, did it again. A flurry of moves at or before the deadline to just continue to be one of the best teams at bolstering their bottom six. And they just did it again, and the NHL just stood by and let them do it.
Yeah, I mean the Blackhawks, giving him Hagel, and he's cheap, $1.5 million for the next couple of years. Just why did these teams continue to help Tampa? Tampa had to give up first round picks, but you take a look at those first round picks, they're going to be 31, 32. I mean, especially if Tampa Bay wins the Stanley Cup, and then they don't have to pay Hagel. They don't have to give him an extension if they don't want to because he's under contract, and that's a 25 plus goal scorer that you can put on the top line if you want to. You can put him next to Kucherov in point if you want to, or move him back, and he's going to be able to, to contribute. Nick Paul is a, bruising type of guy that they get from Ottawa. And, they gave up a guy in Joseph who really wasn't doing much in a top six role. And then you get a Riley Nash too. And so, they just they make sneaky good moves. It's a heck of a team. And when you have a core like that, even if you lose a third line, they lost their entire third line of Coleman, and Goudreau, and Gord. They still have those top guys. Victor Hedman, Point, Kucherov. Palat, Stamkos is healthy. That's huge for them, and a guy like Alex Killorn, one of the most underrated forwards. in the league, and so it's just they're wagging, and they got the best goalie in the league by far, Vasilevsky. That I think that's what makes them stand out. Because he can steal games by himself.
Yep.
And we saw him do it in the playoffs last year. Just getting through Florida was a war for them, and so I really want to see them play Florida again with all the moves Florida made. So it's going to be real interesting. I'm happy that Ekblad is not out for the year. He's out for the regular season, but he should be back for the playoffs. But that guy couldn't catch a break, and they get a guy like Claude Giroux, and so the rich get richer for them. The arms race was exciting to watch in the East too as well.
Chuck Fletcher did get Owen Tippett, so he's happy. But just a crazy deadline. I know there have been some in the past. I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
One of the craziest deadlines, though, I can remember, but maybe it was because the Wild were so active, and that's not something we're used to as Minnesota Wild fans. It's always been like the Chuck Fletcher's either going to stay put or going to go get that fourth line wing or third pairing defenseman to really help bolster things and to breathe some life into this Wild franchise. And then Bill Guerin goes far and away above that and says, all right, boys, we are all in.
Yeah, he gets his, the funny thing about Fleury was he was teammates with Bill Guerin. And so that's pretty cool. He's a Hall of Fame goaltender. You don't see that happen too often, get a Hall of Fame, 3-time Cup winner get traded, not only get traded, but get traded in the same division. If it was a conditional pick, so if they get to the Western Conference final, if they get that far, it's worth it. They pick up a second already with the McBain trade. I love that too by Billy G too. He's like, well, he didn't want to be here, and so we'll see ya. Have fun in Arizona playing in front of less than 5,000 fans probably on a college campus. That's not going to be fun. The Coyotes had to make a trade with Winnipeg today, to help them get to the cap floor, because they're having trouble signing guys. And so they picked up a contract in Brian Little, who'll never play in the NHL again. He got hit in the ear and it broke his eardrum, and he got concussions, and just, it was, a tough way to end your career. But it's Arizona's the land of injury contracts. They'll just take on long-term deals to help them just get to the bottom of the cap, which is tough, embarrassing. They need a new arena. We'll see what comes with that, but just tough.
Very tough, and you always hate to see it when the Coyotes add another player whose rights they could have waited for.
Right.
I think the best way to sum up the McBain thing was, and I forget which insider it was, said that the Coyotes gave up a second-round pick for a guy that they could have just waited till August 15th to sign anyway.
It's just, it's unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, and it was funny that McBain thought he didn't really have a chance here. It's like, well, do you even want a guy like that won't even compete to make the team?
Bill Guerin emphatically said no.
So, I mean, have fun. Arizona, I'm sure he's going to get a really good opportunity. I think he'll play right away too. They need all the help they can get. They traded for guy Nathan Smith too, who's a Hobie Baker finalist at Minnesota State Mankato. So I'm happy Nathan will probably get a chance after the NCAA tournament for college hockey. But tough look for McBain if he didn't want to even get the team that drafted him a chance to make it. Good luck to him.
The final thing I'll leave us with before we gaze into what the rest of this week has, that tweet that you shared from David Schoen, to steal an old line about Greg Lloyd, you're going to need a cue ball and a sock to get through the Minnesota Wild in the playoffs. is it paints a picture, but I think it's exactly what Bill Guerin was looking for, and we saw it tonight with Delaurier, a maniac out there.
I mean, just through launching guys. He had that huge hit against Ben Hutton behind the net too, and just relentless forechecking, and it's you get that sandpaper. Teams are always looking for guys like a Milan Lucic in the playoffs.
Yep.
The games and playoffs tend to be a lot more physical and intense, and not a lot of space, and so. As long as he stays under control in the playoffs and stays out of the box, if it's fighting, then you take both of them. But as long as he doesn't take any cheap penalties like a Ryan Reeves, then then we're golden. And it takes the pressure off a guy like Marcus Foligno, so he doesn't have to be a maniac out there himself, and
right,
can conserve energy and because his line. Like I always mention it, when the Grief line is going, when Eck, Foligno, Greenway, when they are on their game and they are just hounding pucks, wearing out the line they're going up against, it's when the Wild are their best. And so, less to deal with out there for Foligno, thank goodness. And it's kind of funny that Delaurier played with Kulikov and Foligno in the past, and with the Sabres, and so. He feels comfortable being with these guys, and so I think that helps a ton too. And we always we always don't think how it impacts not only them but like their families having to move up, and that's why Fleury. He's in Chicago, and it's not too far away. St. Paul isn't, so he can fly back and see his family if need be. And so, it's the moves that Billy made were great. I mean, I don't think he's made a bad move yet. He's pushed the right buttons. I told people this today too, that I don't think they saw Capo as a long-term answer. And so, they were able to get that depth defenseman that they were searching for, and they give up an asset that, to get a good player, you're going to have to give up a good player. And so, but nice to have Jesper Wallstedt in the pipeline. You get a guy that's compared to Henrik Lundqvist, I think one of the best all-time Swedish goaltenders ever. That's a pretty good comparison, and they stole him from a lot of teams. A team like Edmonton, should have taken him, but
Edmonton
they didn't.
Specifically.
So, and Detroit passed on him too. So, I mean, it's I can't wait to see his climb through the organization. And Fleury plays well. Billy G hinted at it too, that they could extend him and look to move Cam and get a cheaper backup. And so. That's gonna be fascinating too. Fleury's 37, but the way he trains and stays in shape, I think he's got 2 or 3 really solid years left. And hey, you look at Craig Anderson in Buffalo. He's 40 and still starting the majority of the starts for Buffalo. So I'm excited. I think Fleury is he's going to be a great quote and a great locker room guy. Loves pulling pranks and just kind of being, bringing calmness to a team. And, it's going to be fascinating to watch for sure.
Yeah. I can't wait to see him between the pipes, which hopefully will be Thursday. As the Wild have 3 games the rest of this week after dispatching the Golden Knights. So we'll finish today's episode of Locked On Wild looking ahead to the rest of the week. We'll do that after this. Today's episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning, like is your Odyssey an LX or an EX? And why wait while the person behind the counter orders parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. You can save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? RockAuto.com is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, and RockAuto.com's prices are reliably low for every customer. So head to RockAuto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Make sure to write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need, all at RockAuto.com. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Again, thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen every day. We have the rest of this week 3 games on the docket. The Vancouver Canucks on Thursday, then a rematch with the Columbus Blue Jackets on Saturday, followed by an early evening tilt with the Colorado Avalanche game that I will be at in person. Breaking news. We'll be at that game in person. That's going to be an absolute blast. But it starts off with a familiar face. Can't wait to see what the coach interactions like between Dean Evison and Bruce Boudreau leading the Vancouver Canucks, a team that has pushed themselves back towards the playoff conversation. And so not an easy start to the rest of the week because Vancouver's a tough team. It's definitely a winnable game, but it's going to be one that will test the Wild even at home.
Yeah, they've had a weird past couple games. They got shut out by Detroit, and then they lose to to Buffalo in overtime. They gave up a OT winner to Rasmus Dahlin on Sunday, and so they're but they still have a lot of talent on that team. Thatcher Demko has been playing extremely well in the nets. You got Quinn Hughes, one of the rising stars, at the defense position, and then up front, JT Miller, he didn't get moved, and he's had a heck of a season. He's really turned it on, and they kept Elias Pettersson, kept Connor Garland, so they didn't really make any trades up front. They traded Travis Armanek, but I don't know why Ottawa traded for him, but weird team for sure. It should be a really physical game too, I think. It'll be interesting to see how Bruce reacts and sees his former squad, and so. Brad Hunt is on Vancouver too. So there's connections all over the place.
The former D-line power play guy, Brad Hunt, has returned. Let's go.
Yes. Yep. So it's it'll be good to see him. He was always a good guy, and it's
sure.
fun to see him still be in the league. Probably only because of Bruce and that connection. So should be, I think it should be a pretty close game the way Demko's been playing too. He's been keeping Vancouver in it for sure.
I would agree. We then go to Saturday's game, which is against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Wild lost 3-2 in a shootout. Capo was pretty good in this one, but gave up the game tying goal with like 30 seconds left in regulation.
Yep.
No score in overtime. Not a surprise because both teams basically just played keep away. And then the Blue Jackets get the win in the shootout. I think a good opportunity for the Wild to draw even in the series at home, because I think they've got some players that will help that they acquired before the trade deadline that could help swing things towards the Wild, because Columbus, I think, is a team that might get a little frustrated if they get pushed around.
Yeah, they're a weird team to figure out too. They give up a ton of goals, but they can also score a ton too. And they have a guy in Patrick Laine who's a superstar. And
the Bond villain.
Yes, he's got some of the best game day fits for sure too. And Some of those suits that he wears are just incredible to see. And Zach Rowinski's a stud there on the D line, and Elvis is a an interesting goalie. We saw in the shootout that he likes to talk smack. In the shootout, he was barking at Zuccarello when he stopped him, and so it'll be an interesting game for sure. The additions, like you said, depending on if Fleury plays or not, or how they determine the goalie schedule, that'll be interesting. But a guy like Jacob Middleton will really help, on the penalty kill and just help spread out the minutes a little bit better, because that Columbus game, they were on a back-to-back of the back end of a back-to-back after playing Detroit and going to a shootout in that game too, and then traveling to Columbus, and so hopefully they'll be a little bit more rested against the Columbus team. And plus also being at home, you get last change, and so you can dictate the matchups, and so try to make sure you got like Jonas Brodin out there against Line A, and another added element to this game too is Jacob Voracek went scorched earth on Twitter when after when Foligno kind of leg whipped him. Foligno went kamikaze on the bit, and there should have been a penalty. Officiating has been just kind of horrendous in the league lately. And Voracek, he's kind of always been an outspoken guy and a character. He tweeted that this was I got need, and so lucky for Marcus that Voracek was okay, but I'm sure Marcus is going to probably have to answer the bell in that game. So it'll be interesting for sure to watch, to look out for that too.
Well, that might be our first opportunity to see Nic Deslauriers drop the gloves.
Yeah. Good luck to whoever has to fight him too. I don't think Voracek would want to take on Delaurier. I don't think many people in the league want to. That guy is one of the strongest guys in the league for sure, and he can really drop the gloves and pound guys. So so it'll be interesting for sure. When that first happens, the X will go through the roof. So Spokesy has had some amazing tweets about D'Lo. So we got to see it happen and get the clips out for sure.
I was asked about what Delaurier brings to the table on a different show, and the nicest way that I could put it is that he seems like he has homicidal tendencies on the ice. But it's a compliment. He's just a maniac.
Yeah.
And he's Mr. Larson and Happy Gilmore. He's going to be just a menace. And if not Columbus, the Avalanche, who come to town on Sunday, that is going to be a massive playoff type atmosphere. What a great way to end the week. A 5:00 game. And the X is going to be rocking.
Yeah.
A great opportunity for the Minnesota Wild to say, hey, objects in the mirror are closer than they appear.
Yeah, it's going to be a phenomenal game. You take a look at Colorado tonight, probably one of the games of the year. They played Edmonton, stars all over the ice, Draisaitl, McDavid, McKinnon, McCarr. The list goes on. Mikko Rantanen, Kemper, just a big game. And Cale Makar, he's got 71 points now. They him and McKinnon get a 2-on-1 on McDavid in overtime, and Makar gets it over to McKinnon and buries it. And just what a squad that team is. And so it's going to come down to the goaltending for them and how far they make it. They couldn't do it with Grubauer, and he gets hurt too, and then Francois got hurt, and so they just they've they haven't been able to put it all together. And so Sunday's matchup should be phenomenal. I hope it's Fleury versus Kemper, just because that would be really fun to see, especially if the Wild, if they get far into the playoffs, if they ever have to play Colorado, it'd be kind of a fun kind of a playoff preview. And so, Colorado doesn't have a guy like Landeskog, but when you have Nathan McKinnon, Rantanen, Kadri, Makar, Taves, just the list goes on and on of great players on that team. And so, you don't even mention guys like Alex Newhook, and more depth guys like that, Valerie Niskushkin, and just it's an incredible team. But the Wild have a great team too. We can't forget that. And
Right.
every team goes through ups and downs. Colorado does too, has too, and so they lost their captain in Landeskog, and they still are fighting through it. And so the Wild went through a stretch there where it was tough to watch for everybody, but Billy has made some moves to try to correct that, and I just cannot wait to see a full house there for sure.
It's going to be rocking,
Yep.
and it's glad to see this team kind of get its mojo back after Bill Guerin said, "All right, we're gonna do this thing," and I can't wait to see this play out. But this will be a big week, and this will be a good indication as to where this team is at, depending on how these 3 games go. So we'll keep tabs on it, and we will, of course, keep you informed as to how things go the rest of the way. But that is going to wrap it up for today's episode of Locked On Wild. Now that your first listen of the day is done, make sure, as mentioned, you head to the Locked On NHL podcast to get the full lowdown on everything going on throughout the league, both game-wise and trade deadline-wise as well. Locked On NHL is available wherever you listen to podcasts. Just like Locked On Wild, find us anywhere and everywhere. Also, make sure to give us a follow on social media to keep up to date on everything going on with your favorite Minnesota Wild hockey team. If a puck drops, if a trade happens, or if news breaks in the state of hockey, Locked On Wild has you covered with new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.